First of all, we want to of course have a frame. So I'm just going to quickly create the starter GUI with a button or whatever. Frame will also work, image label, text button, anything will work. And currently, assuming we wanted our frame to, let's say, be blue, I could go selecting the perfect RGB code for the exact blue, but yet it still wouldn't look this good. Especially it doesn't look good if you're trying to go for some type of a color that's more like a gray, because it is just black. What you can do against this is you can add in a gradient. So we are just going to, under frame, click the plus, and then we are going to search for UI gradient. When this is added, we can select it. Now this has the properties color, enabled, offset, rotation, and transparency. More you don't really need to worry about. The color you can just select, then is going to have a regular color selection if you would click on the white, and it has a regular RGB code. But there are 3 dots. If you click these, it's going to open the timeline of your gradient. Currently, in default, it'll go from white to white. It has 2 triangles at the bottom of the timeline, indicating for where the color changes. By clicking anywhere on the timeline, you can add more of these triangles. That would also ungray out a text box, which is going to display the time over where that part of the gradient is. Now, for now, I'm only going to be using these 2 pre-existing triangles. I'm going to select the first one, and I would recommend that this is the color that you would be using otherwise. So I'm just going to have it be exactly the RGB code for blue. Now this currently doesn't look that good, so I'm going to select the second triangle just by clicking on it. And then here I'm going to select the exact same color as I did for the one before. And currently it still looks the same. But what we can now do is it has here a slider in the color selection, which goes from blue to black. Or instead of blue, it could be whatever your color you're using. And we can drag this down. I would recommend that if you are at a default of 255 for whatever your color is, then you drag it down to 100. Or if you're, let's say, using purple, so that would be 255 red, 255 blue, then you'll reduce both to 100. So now I can close this, and we can put the rotation to be 90 degrees so that it fades in from the top as a bright to down as a darker of the same color. Something that will help probably is that now, because a big factor of how light or dark the total of the color is displayed is back at the default color of the frame. Because as you might remember, before I set it to a gray color, which makes that all colors this affects the gradient are dark. But now if I drag it up to white, we have a much brighter total UI right now. Can of course also make it be darker if you actually wish so, but I prefer it bright currently. In case you would want that, for instance, your UI gradient would go bright, dark, bright, you can just select the color sequence, and then at around the middle of the timeline click, that'll add one of these triangles. You can set the time to be 0.5. You can select the last triangle and put that to the same color as the triangle you have at the start, so in my case 255. Now I can select a middle triangle and select that, make that be the darkest point in the entire image. And there we go. There is also the offset for the gradient, which I believe is a pixel amount, no, a scalar amount of how the timeline is actually positioned in relation to the center of your element that you're adding the gradient to. In my case, I can set the x to be the biggest number Roblox will allow, and it will not take a singular effect, because technically we have our gradient is infinitely going on the x-axis, so we're only moving the position of the gradient on the x-axis, but we can move it on the y-axis by, let's say, 0.1, and then it is moved down a bit by here. Now, because here at the top is 255 blue, here 255 blue, and here 100 blue, if I move it down by 0.1, it's probably going to be here 255 blue, 255 blue, 100 blue, 255 blue. And last but probably least, there is a gradient transparency. This is set in a a page function. If you click the three dots for the transparency, it is going to open up a ginormous menu. This has rectangles. If you hover over them, you'll create a dot that is connected to the start and end point of your line, and so much more. You have 3 different text boxes to set, but let's not worry about that for now. Currently, this says time, which is 1. Now I don't quite see what this does, but you can click, let's say, anywhere on these rectangles, and oh, it's already doing something. Now if I drag this down, the vertical axis sets how a page you make it be. So if I, let's say, make that be 3/4 of a page, then it actually sets the value to be 3/4 of 1. Now I can add, let's say, a second one over here, and maybe a third dot over here. Now as you can see, it distributes the time dots that I set in the same way the gradient, because it rotates them, and further up it is, more transparent it is, further down it is, less transparent it is, aka more visible it is. And you can add a lot more of these dots and create some really cool effects. Okay, perfect. So this is how you can use UI gradients. I'm sure there can be better applications for what I did until now, and you'll hopefully watch some more of my videos to explain some more things. Bye!